It was a night of comebacks in the UEFA Champions League. You saw, Atletico Madrid and Borussia Dortmund play out an absolute thriller with Dortmund winning. But of course, the biggest comeback that everyone is talking about, Paris Saint-Germain versus Barcelona. Barcelona going with a slender advantage in from the first leg, then take a lead in the game, and from there somehow end up losing the entire tie and incidentally completing what the internet is now calling the reverse remontada. Very interesting, but of course always brings us to the talk of where exactly these sort of games would rank when you're looking at the pantheon really of comeback games that you've seen in the Champions League over time, and there's obviously a lot of them. There's a lot of them.
It's interesting because you weren't really firstly expecting this sort of a massive turnaround from both the games. You thought that it was pretty much sealed, and the kind of comebacks. So look at the kind of comeback that PSG made, and an even bigger comeback I would say that Dortmund made over Atletico Madrid, who by the way know what it is to be facing a comeback, and they've done so not the first time. They experienced something like that for easily the third time that I can recall in the last decade. So they've been at the receiving end of a couple of these rather incredible and unthinkable comebacks. But where do these comebacks really rank? If I was to just go back and recall some of the great comebacks, of course the Liverpool versus Barcelona game comes to my mind. You also recall the time that Barcelona again featured in that game against Roma. Not too long back, in fact, the 2021 season, 2022 season, 21-22 season, which Real Madrid in the reverse fixture where they were hosting Manchester City did get the better of them against the run of play. All of these, come to my mind. Also, not to forget the famous Spurs versus Ajax game as well, which also was mind-boggling given how late the goals were scored in that in that particular season as well, and that particular match. But where do these comebacks rank? I doubt if these make it to my top 3, because I think that Liverpool versus Barcelona fixture. Then of course and I'm just talking about recency. Let's say in the last 8 to 10 years, let's say even the Barcelona versus AS Roma match also, given the scoreline, given how Herculean a task that was needed from AS Roma to turn things around, and the manner in which those dramatic visuals and of course those were much closer games. Let's say those were decided on a goal difference. That was also, those were times where the away goal really meant a lot. So I think I would rate those games ahead of the 2 comebacks that we saw yesterday.
Also, one other factor you have to remember is that the Barca game unfortunately compromised by a red card. So that did make it a little bit easier on PSG. We've seen other matches also where comebacks tend to not be that simple, let's say. If you're going even further back in time, I remember one match, a lot of people would have forgotten it, but Chelsea-Napoli, second leg 2011-12. Andre Villas-Boas, then the manager, had gotten sacked after losing the first leg. They lost the first leg. Then in the second leg, Roberto Di Matteo took charge for the first time. Somehow they won that game. Then go on to make what was an impossible run to even winning the title. No one expected it. It happened, and it was like the final hurrah for a lot of those players, many of whom had defined a generation. You're talking about that. That is one of those ones. Another one, and if I have to go a really long way back, it wasn't a comeback, but it came close. Man United versus Real Madrid all those years back. I think it was David Beckham's final season. They came very close to pulling off a comeback. You didn't win, but that was thrilling.
What, 8-9 then?
No, not 8-9. It was 8-9. It would have been 2002-3.
You're talking about
when Beckham scored. Okay.
I mixed that up with Ronaldo's. But again, you didn't win. You didn't win that year. Yes, I remember the game that you're talking about. But speaking of, eventually what matters is if you're able to complete the turnaround. And job well done for PSG. They would look at this as revenge of 4 years back that they had to endure.
No, it was 2017. So that's 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah, the last long time. Yeah, that was the last time Barcelona won a Champions League, right? And incidentally, who was the manager at that point in time?
The man on the opposite
Luis Enrique. Very, very interesting. Really.
Also, very interesting that Barcelona was reading. Barcelona hadn't lost a quarterfinal, rather any Champions League match. I think, especially in the knockout stage, when they had won on away territory. This is the first time that after having won the first leg in on away soil that they managed to concede the whole tie. Secondly, even PSG had not pulled off something like this ever before. That is losing at home and then going ahead and reversing the tie. So incredible, stats coming out of this particular match.
Actually, because you're right with Barcelona. Now that you mentioned that. The Liverpool and Roma comebacks both happened at home for the opposition.
Yes.
So they were away fixtures.
Yes.
So that's very interesting. I didn't realize that. And with PSG also, yeah, people tend to forget that the year they even made it to the final, which was 2020, you were playing those one-legged, quarters, semis because it was the COVID year. So you were having all of them, correct me if I'm wrong, it was in Lisbon. It was just all held in Lisbon.
Yes, this is the year...
2019-20.
2019-20.
So remember, all leagues ended up getting delayed. You had Project Restart. Therefore the gap between...
No fans that year.
So every one of them, they were in a bio bubble, and which makes that, remember, 8-2 or something, which Bayern inflicted on Barca. Even more amazing because it happened in one match. One match. So that was that year. And with PSG, they that year made it to the final somehow. But they were also making it with the advantage of playing one-leg games. They were clearly the inferior team. And
one can say, just digressing a bit over here, that PSG, I think, they would feel right now that they've got 1 foot in the final.
I mean, they have the easier side of the draw. Let's be very, very fair. They do. And I think if they can make it to the final, but see, that's the thing. It'll be bittersweet for PSG if this is the season they end up winning the Champions League. Why? Because there's not going to be a Kylian Mbappe from next year. There is not going to be a Kylian Mbappe. And in fact, remember, this is the same Kylian Mbappe who Luis Enrique was subbing off in Champions League games. Because he's like, no, we need to get used to the idea of not playing
with
and I mean, this is also the same Mbappe who, I will admit, having watched the matches, I'm looking and thinking, he didn't have that much of an impact. Like, there was times where he was a little invisible. But like all world-class players, still could impact it. Got 2 goals across them. And it was like, wow, this guy is very much proving already before he's even signed for Real Madrid to be a thorn in Barcelona's side. Very, very interesting.
Speaking of thorns in Barcelona's side, there was Ousmane Dembele yesterday. Managed to score, was good even when
like a man possessed.
Yeah.
He was playing like a man possessed. Definitely had a point or two to prove. And I think, I think one of the fun subplots of this is that you're seeing, of course, 2 giants of the game right now, and neither of them are really at the peak of their powers. I mean, the PSG, we've seen stronger PSG sides on paper struggle. This is probably one of the more workman-like PSG sides. And with Barca, I mean, we know the financial problems that they've had, how it is that they've been forced to kind of retool, rebuild the squad they have. So this is obviously not the same as, say, even 2018-19 when they won their the previous league before the Xavi, when they won it under, I think it was Valverde. Memory serves me, right? It was Valverde. That team still had a pantheon of superstars. This team very much a work in progress. I think they'll also take a little bit from this, say, listen, you know what, we took the knocks. It's a very young team, a lot of young players there. Maybe, take the experience, move on, get better for it.
Yeah.
But actually, just to, if you're talking about it, where does this rank?
Does this feature for you in the top 3, let's say, either of those games?
It would struggle to make my top 5. And see, I'm taking nothing away from even Dortmund because they did pretty well. But again,
I think we didn't mention the time that Real, I think, were trailing 3-1 against Atletico, and then you saw that Ronaldo hat-trick at the Bernabeu. Again, that's another fixture to talk about as well. So we've seen a thrilling comeback. Let's again also because things were far more interesting or rather spicy. Let's say when you had the away goal rule. And harder also. Nowadays, again, let's say the fixtures that you're going to be seeing tonight are just shootouts now.
They're straight shootouts.
They're straight shootouts.
Exactly. 0-0.
Exactly. So whatever happened, because again, both those matches ended up being draws, it doesn't matter what happened in the first leg. Back in the day when you saw all these fixtures, there was, let's say, so much strategy at play. There was so much of baggage you had to deal with from the previous week. Play accordingly. Have your strategies in place accordingly. So all of that put together, those are interesting times as well. Yes, you could argue that, at the end of the day, it's scoreline, away goal, this and that. But I think those were comebacks in that sort of a backdrop, I think, made for very special comebacks.
In theory, right, you were often told that, scoring away was much tougher. Now you've realized that's not really the case. But in that time period where you thought that, getting away goals was a tough thing, to see these teams then go and make these kind of comebacks. But I, on the other hand, like how it's opened up the game also. Because now you see teams be more, let's
aggressive,
say, enterprising.
Which is why you're all set to, let's say, experience box-to-box kind of football tonight as well.
Yeah, 3-3, 2-2.
Absolutely.
It's great. It's what you should be looking forward to. But yeah, I think it's a good comeback, especially for PSG, because again, the one thing when you talk about PSG is that they always tend to lack the gumption for fights.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, this is it. This is the end of their tournament. But the fact that they could come back, full credit to them. Doesn't make my top 5 though. Never mind even top 3.
But those are our thoughts. Let us know whether, firstly, what you made of the 2 games, and whether it features in your top 5, top 7, whatever list of comebacks that you've seen in the Champions League in recent times. So now we'll take your leave. In case you like what we do here at Sports Day, give us a thumbs up, like our videos, check out some of the other stuff that we've done, not just football, other sports as well. We're extensively covering the candidates as well for you, the IPL as well. So check out all those playlists that we have in store for you. For now, we'll take your leave. My colleague Shane Dias, my name is Harshit Ahuja. We'll take your leave.